169th greatest lover?
The number 169 never screamed going places until now. Get the Toyota Aygo X-Play for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go. Aygo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Aygo X-Play over 48 months. £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of October 2019. £3,487.50p optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
NFL fans, the action continues this weekend on TuneIn Premium.
And it's down to the 15, the 10, the 5, and Coleman is in for a touchdown.
This Sunday, TuneIn has every NFL football game, starting with the Panthers at the Buccaneers live across the pond at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London at 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern.
Caught for a touchdown, middle of the end zone.
TuneIn will be closing out NFL Sunday night with the Steelers at the Chargers at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Catch the latest news as it happens with MSNBC on TuneIn. From American politics to global events, when breaking news hits, you'll never miss a moment again. Search MSNBC on TuneIn to hear the latest.
TuneIn puts you on the sideline for the 2019 college football season free all year long. With college football on TuneIn, hear the home and away call for more than 140 schools live, regular season matchups and rivalry games, conference championships and bowl games, the college football playoff.
Throw it. He's got it in stiff arm. End zone. Touchdown.
You can listen to it all for free at home, on campus, or on the road. Hear the excitement and pageantry of college football all season long, free on TuneIn.
From the TuneIn Studios on Fonseca with your daily sports update. Today, we've got Game 1, Nationals, Cardinals. First pitch, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern.
Swinging up. Line drive into left center. That's going to score 2 more. And the Cardinals lead 9-0. It's a double by Wong. Let her rip, boys. Let her rip. The Cardinals lead 9-0 here in the first inning.
Yep, catch that game right here. Nationals, Cardinals, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. That's your TuneIn Sports Update.
All right, we're back. Options traders are spotting unusual activity today in shares of that company right there, the Wendy's company. WEN shares up 3.5% right now. Pete Nigerian joining us from Minneapolis with our lunchtime trade. Tell us about it, Pete.
Well, it's pretty interesting, Scott. Obviously, they had Investor Day today, and they announced a lot of different things, but one of them is the different growth areas where they are not right now, presently. One of that being over in Europe. They also want to expand into the breakfast world. So you combine some of that, and people got very bullish about what the future might hold for this company. And they also talked about some of the same-store sales growth that they've got. That's been very impressive as well. So all of a sudden, we see all of this buying today. The October 21 calls, very aggressively purchased today. Like seeing that. At the same time, within minutes, they started buying the January 20.5 calls. So aggressive buying to the upside. One of them very short term because we're already into October. So this is a fairly short term trade. But those options were very inexpensive. So it was nice to see the great risk reward potential of this. Stock was trading near where it is right now, around 20.5 when we saw these purchases coming in. So it already popped up in over 21. It pulled back a little bit. I think over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see this stock start to edge to the upside more. So I like what we've got there in terms of risk reward. You want to talk about a quick update, though. Under Armour. Now, we just talked about this on Wednesday, Scott, and this is one of those where we had some pretty aggressive buying in there as well, but they were buying options that were going to expire today. They were buying those options. They were the 19.5 calls that expire today, the 11th, and they were paying 20 cents. Today, those are now 70 cents. We talk about you've got to be disciplined. You get a move like that quick, you've got to take some of that off. And, by the way, they're going to expire anyway, so it would make a lot of sense to start taking some of that off. We have not seen further buying in Under Armour, so I'm going to be out of this for a while. I think Under Armour's a trade. I still like other names in the space. Look at Lululemon that's been skyrocketing to the upside now through 200. I think there are better places to be in terms of longer term holds. I own stock in Lulu, but I'm looking anytime they buy calls in Under Armour, I'm going to be back in once again.
All right, good stuff. Pete, enjoy the weekend. Thank you, man.
Cool.
All right, we'll see you back here next week.
You too.
Yep, thank you. All right, Apple hitting a new all-time high today, and we have the #1 analyst with us next on Halftime, Tony Sacconaghi, coming up. Is he going to raise his price target, change his rating? We're going to ask him.
Nothing comes easily.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Searching for a more memorable short break? Fly from London Heathrow to Cork from $55.99 each way as part of a return trip with Aer Lingus. Step off the plane and into a warm welcome in Cork. Surround yourself with breathtaking coastal views. Soak up the culture of Cork City or head to the colourful town of Kinsale and indulge in the best seafood around. Smart enjoys a short break in Ireland. Smart flies, Aer Lingus. Book now at airlingus.com. Offers subject to conditions and availability.
Hearing is an underrated miracle. Intimate whispers, the lushness of symphonies, the soothing patter of rain on leaves. If you had that taken away from you, it would be a massive loss for most of us. Almost all of us go every day without really stopping to think about just how important it is to us.
Audible presents The Body, a guide for occupants, written and read by Bill Bryson, including original bonus material exclusively available at Audible. Listen free as part of your 30-day trial, $7.99 a month after 30 days, renews automatically.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want movies, I've got blockbusters. Football, how about the Premier League? Or how about crime dramas? I've got loads, and they're never going to guess who did it. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto-renew, terms apply.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want reality TV, I can fill that island-shaped hole. Dramas, OMG, I've got Chernobyl. Or how about movies? I've got blockbusters. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto-renew, terms apply.
Apple has soared over 40% in the first 3 quarters of the year. According to our data partners at Kensho, since 2000, the tech giant has had similar moves on 6 other occasions. Following those gains, the stock tends to move higher, adding an average of another 18%, trading positively 83% of the time over the rest of the year. For more, go to cnbc.com/Kensho.
Welcome back. Apple hitting an all-time high today. As we told you, we have the #1 ranked Apple analyst with us. Institutional Investment just named him #1 again for the 18th year in a row. Tony Sacconaghi, the senior analyst at Bernstein, joins us now on the phone. Tony, congratulations. I guess this is, I don't know if it gets old, but congratulations nonetheless.
Well, thank you, Scott. It's always an honor, and I think it just makes me old, but certainly the honor doesn't get old.
Well, we enjoy having you all the time, and today's a great day to do it. All-time high. Your reaction, how's Apple done this?
Look, I think if you look at the stock over the last year, we were at pretty similar levels a year ago, and the iPhone cycle was weak, and investors reacted pretty negatively to that. And I think as investors look forward now, they're more optimistic. This cycle seems to be okay. There's anticipation for a 5G cycle next year, and the services and buyback programs are growing well. So you've seen Apple effectively round trip on that, and investor enthusiasm is sort of similar to where we were a year ago.
Yeah, wouldn't you want to get ahead of some of the positives you just mentioned rather than risk the potential of having to chase it with either a price target bump or a rating boost?
Well, we pretty purposefully revisit our price target every several months. So we last set it in July. It's not something we do regularly. We'll revisit that over the course of earnings and see what Apple has to say, and obviously see where the market goes, because the market has gone up a reasonable amount since we last set our price target. But look, I think there's, whenever there's optimism about a stock, you always have to look over your shoulder. And I think the initial data points around this cycle are positive. But again, we have to remember it's extremely early in the cycle. Last year, Apple reported earnings around November 1st, and they gave okay guidance only to pre-announce a pretty significant shortfall on January 2nd. So the profile of the cycle changed very dramatically after November 1. We're not even close to November 1 right now. Moreover, I think unit growth has been good, but it's likely that average selling prices for the iPhone are going to be down for the first time in 3 years. And there's two sides to the revenue equation. It's obviously units shipped, which, data points to date say pretty good. But the other side is average selling prices, and my suspicion is we're seeing a bit of a mix shift to lower price models this year.
I hear you, but if you suggest that they're buying back a lot of stock, you've got a 5G, you're going to get a 5G boost, you've got the iPhone 11 ramp, at least production would suggest that if they're doing that, they must think that there's end demand on the other side. And if you're not willing, and the stock, by the way, with momentum and hitting a new all-time high today, if you're not willing to make those moves now on your price target and your rating on the stock, they must need to do something certainly, spectacular to get you to move. I'm wondering what that would be. Have I mischaracterized that? I've given you a lot of reasons why you suggested yourself that you could move the rating or the target. You're not willing to do it yet, so what would it take?
Right. So I think there's a long-term and a short-term question on Apple. So on the long term, our belief is that Apple is still somewhat of a trading stock, that it is highly cyclical. We've had 2 years in the last 4 where revenues have been down for the company because cycles haven't been particularly good, fiscal 19 and fiscal 16. And the company is trying to affect the migration to a services company, but there still is a lot of volatility in earnings, and the principal driver of earnings today is hardware, and we believe that over time, hardware is a tough business. Replacement cycles elongate, margins typically go down, et cetera. And so I think for us to sort of structurally think about this company differently, less transactional less transactional business. So if Apple were to somehow take its hardware business and turn it into a bundled service, which is something that many people on the street, including ourselves, have been talking about for several years, that would really change our view. That would make this a intrinsically much less volatile company, much less subject to replacement cycle elongation over time. I think if we saw services as a significantly more meaningful portion of profits, which is going to take time, then we could get more confident that hardware volatility would be muted over time. But we're still a ways away from that, given that hardware is about 80% and services is about 20% today. So that's how we think about it long term. I think short term, there's a lot of enthusiasm about the stock, and my sense is we will have a pullback in the price between now and the 5G cycle, and then we'll have to think about, okay, is that a more attractive entry point for investors? But right now, folks are discounting, a pretty good cycle this year and a pretty good cycle next year. And I'm not so sure it's as simple as that in light of some of the ASP issues that I mentioned before.
Well, that's interesting. So you're suggesting or calling for a pullback between now and 5G to your price target? Are we looking at that kind of a move lower, do you think?
Look, last year when the iPhone cycle disappointed, the stock went from 222 on November 1 to, I think, 152. I would be surprised if we saw, a disappointment in the cycle and a pullback along those lines. But is it possible that the stock could retreat 20 to 30 or more dollars, depending on the market backdrop? Not at all. I think that's plausible. I'm not explicitly making that call now, but I certainly think that's plausible.
Tony, we'll leave it there. Congrats again. 18 years in a row, the #1 analyst on Apple. We appreciate having you.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, that's Tony Sacconaghi joining us there. All right, coming up, we're ready to answer your questions next. To reach us, there is still time. Go to cnbc.com/halftime. You can tweet us. We'll be back in about 2 minutes to answer your questions.
Is the monolithic view of emerging markets obsolete?
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and V Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Welcome aboard Europe's 169th safest airline.
You were like my 169th biggest crush in school.
Your total body age is 169.
The number 169 never screamed glamour until now. Get the Toyota Aygo X-Play for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go. Aygo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Aygo X-Play over 48 months. £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of October 2019. £3,487.50p optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
Chase the sun with TUI to over 40 long-haul destinations. Explore the beautiful beaches of Jamaica, sip margaritas in Mexico, or see the many wonders of Asia. And until the 26th of October, enjoy £150 off per booking. When you fly with us, we'll take you there on one of our state-of-the-art Dreamliner planes. TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. T's and C's apply. Minimum spend £1,200 and available on selected holidays. See website for details. ATOL protected.
The nights have started to draw in. And at DFS, we know that can only mean one thing. Everyone will want to spend more time at home, getting nice and cozy. Ah, you can't beat it. That's why all our sofas are handmade to order, and many are guaranteed to be delivered in time for Christmas. So you can look forward to cozying up this winter, knowing your new sofa won't let you down. DFS.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Billboard magazine says Miley Cyrus has been hospitalized because of tonsillitis. She has a show this weekend and is trying to heal so she can perform in Los Angeles on Saturday. Meanwhile, good news for Bieber fans. MusicNews.com says Justin Bieber will release a new album before the end of the year.
Are you wondering why I've been calling?
To hear music from Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber, search today's hits on TuneIn.
All right, welcome back. Let's answer some of your questions now. Joe, you get the first one from Vince and Boca. What are your thoughts on Datadog?
I think you buy
entry point here?
I think, yes, I think you do. Keep in mind, Cisco tried to buy this company at a valuation somewhere around $7.5 billion. The value of the company right now on the pullback is $10 billion. That's why I think you buy it.
All right, Jimmy, for you from John in Grattan, California. Grattan, I hope I got that right. Cleveland Cliffs. What does, I'm going to add Farmer. He doesn't say Farmer. What does Farmer Jim think about Cleveland Cliffs at this level? Hasn't done well lately. Would an infrastructure bill help?
Yes, of course it would. So would a trade deal, by the way. That would boost steel prices and basic material prices. But the reason to be in this stock is not just because of where steel prices or iron ore prices are going to go. The reason to be in this price is in the stock, two things. One, Lorenzo Goncalves is an incredible CEO, and one of the manifestations of that is reason number two, the hot briquetted iron plant in Toledo, which is going to start up next year in the summer and is going to be a major boost to EBITDA.
All right, Kate Moore, for you from Mike in Dallas. Are we putting too much weight on the consumer driving the market?
I don't think so, actually. Consumer is one of our most powerful themes. We actually see strong wage growth. We're continuing to see hiring. And I think the confidence numbers we were talking about earlier from the UMISH data were actually really quite inspiring. We like stuff in the discretionary space, but also look outside of just the traditional, spend areas. What are consumers spending on? Travel, experiences, media. So there are industries in each of the sectors, I think, that benefit from the strong consumer. I say stay long.
Josh, give me 15 seconds. Anthony in Columbus, Ohio, regional banks. What do you think?
Too soon for a trade. You need it above 55. Yield is not tempting enough at 2 and change % on the index. I would let it break out because every time it gets to 55, it fails.
All right, good stuff. Thanks for the questions as always. We're going to take a break. We'll come back. We got a Roku rally going on. We're going to hit that. I'm going to ask Joe about Twilio, ask the gang about Square, and we're going to do final trades. We're going to get that all in, I promise. We're back after this.
The Halftime Report is honoring America's veterans once again this year. If you're a veteran or part of a military family, we want you to come see us live at the Women's Memorial in Arlington, Virginia on November 8th. Tickets are free. Just email your name and phone number to veterantickets@cnbc.com. The deadline is Monday, October 14th. Again, come see the halftime team honor America's veterans at the Women's Memorial in Arlington, Virginia, November 8th. For free tickets, email us at veteranstickets@cnbc.com. See you there.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and V Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Welcome aboard Europe's 169th safest airline.
You were like my 169th biggest crush in school.
Your total body age is 169.
The number 169 never screamed glamour until now. Get the Toyota Aygo X-Play for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go. Aygo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Aygo X-Play over 48 months. £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of October 2019. £3,487.50p optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
The chance of being abducted by aliens is about 1 in 7 million. Oh, unlucky. Never mind, at Curry's PC World, there's a 1 in 10 chance to get half your money back on all 2019 LG OLED TVs, like the LG C9, described by Which as simply the best. Its Dolby Atmos gives you a surround sound experience that's out of this world, and there's up to £500 off. So the question is, are you feeling lucky? At Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply. GB16 plus. See currys.co.uk.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want comedy, coming up. Way better than the dad jokes in this house. Horrors, no problem. It's not real, it's not real, it's not real. Or how about dramas? OMG, I've got Chernobyl. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus. Month passes auto-renew. Terms apply.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want reality TV, I can fill that island-shaped hole. Movies, I've got blockbusters. Or how about football? I've got the Premier League. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus. Month passes auto-renew. Terms apply.
Comprehensive, but overvalued. What do you think?
It sounds like the point they're making is that it's not really a software play, it's a payments play. And if it is a payments play, ultimately the multiple will have to settle down to where the other payment gateway stocks trade at. And I guess that's reasonable, but I'm not sold on the fact that it's just a payments company. I really do think they have things like network effects that their peers in payments really can't claim. So I would say it does deserve a higher multiple. The other thing is it's already come down like 15 points. So like now you want to downgrade it?
Okay. Roku upgraded today. Jimmy, to outperform at RBC, target goes to 155. Compelling valuation.
Well, that's
after
that's
a decline in the stock.
Well, wait a second. I'm not coming at you, but the valuation is laughable. The only reason to buy this stock is momentum. And you've accused me correctly of going away from my knitting, okay? That's why I will only buy this stock when the momentum is clearly defined. It hasn't clearly defined to the upside yet.
Ken Griffin took a 5% stake yesterday.
I saw it. That's very interesting. That's not a fundamental reason. But also
13G.
I'm not suggesting it's an activist stake, but the fact is it's Ken Griffin.
It's a positive. It's unequivocally a positive, notwithstanding your qualification. Again, I want to make this simple. For me to be in this, the momentum has to be very clearly defined to the upside. I'm not buying it yet.
All right, Twilio, Joe, outperformed today, RBC.
They report on November 4th.
Initiated it.
November 4th.
Initiated it.
Yes.
Sorry.
They report on November 4th. We need to have some confidence that the high expectations for this company remain consistent.
135. Can it hit 135? That's the target.
If there is a good quarter, yes, it can.
Okay. Let's do final trades. Kate Moore.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again. You're up first.
Okay, semis. I know they've had a phenomenal run year to date, but
Almost
I see
40%, right? We said that at the top
three
of the
things
show.
supporting them. Number one, on the trade side, if we get progress on the Huawei, I think the 5G-related names can lead the market higher. Number two, on the secular side, semis are in everything now. That's not going away. But number three, cyclical. We're better at a supply-demand balance, and I think that's all going to come into play over coming quarters. It's a place we want to stay long.
All right, good stuff. Farmer Jim.
Alaska Airlines, Judge. Look, we've talked a little bit about the airlines. Delta reported yesterday and went down. I think the airlines are being underappreciated for how low fuel prices are, and you're seeing that in the earnings reports that have started to come up. That's going to continue to support airlines. Alaska is my favorite.
Delta's a pretty interesting statement yesterday. You know, the numbers weren't bad at all, and stock still went down.
Yeah. And again, I think it's the wrong move by the market. That happens.
Okay. Josh Brown, what do you got for me?
I'm gonna say J.P. Morgan. You know, this is a stock that I think is overdue to break out. 120 will be your signal that it's time.
Joey?
Hess.
Do you want to give me another word on that? I mean, Hess?
Outperformer in the energy space. I like that.
We're going to have to leave it there, Joe.
Thank you. The exchange begins now. Very well done.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, everybody. President Trump says good things are happening in the trade talks. Word is a skinny deal could be on tap, and the market's a believer right now. We're about 90 minutes away from the big meeting between the two countries this afternoon. Can they deliver on this deal? We'll debate that. Plus, the good vibes are flowing from the shores of the UK today. Could an actual Brexit deal get done? And how much has this concern been weighing on global markets? We'll dive into that. All that, plus Roku keeps rocking. How much would you need to be paid to give up Google? And is China ready to make nice with the NBA again? It's all ahead in rapid fire. But we begin with these markets. Seema Modi has the big numbers this hour. Seema?
And all eyes on trade, Kelly. Market hopes building around trade talks that are happening in D.C. Take a look at the major averages at this hour. The Dow and S&P 500 on track to snap a 3-week losing streak. We're up around 1.5% for the major indices. Best performing sectors, industrials and materials. As investors keep a close eye on those trade talks in D.C., we're now about 2% away from the all-time highs we hit back in July. Now, following a very strong session overseas, this really has been a global market rally. You have the Shanghai Composite, markets in Japan closing higher, but on a percentage basis, stocks in Europe posting the biggest gains. You can see Germany up nearly 3%, FTSE 100 also higher. The bigger move is in the pound on a possible Brexit deal. The notable standouts, though, back here in the U.S., industrials. Fastenal, the industrial and construction supplier, reporting earnings that came in much higher than expected. Plus, its CFO is saying tariffs will not be an incremental drag in the fourth quarter. Remember, next week, a lot of the big industrial stocks report earnings. Honeywell is on Thursday. We have Apple at a new record high. Home Depot and Walmart also at new highs. Keep in mind, Apple now up about 50% here in 2019. There we go. Kelly, back to you.
Seema, thanks very much. Yeah. Seema Modi. Welcome to the exchange, everyone. I'm Kelly Evans, and trade is where we begin today, with hopes up on the possibility of a skinny deal, so-called, with China. What would that deal actually look like? Kayla Tausche is live at the White House with the very latest this hour. Hey, Kayla.
Hey, Kelly. Talks broke just about an hour ago between China and the U.S., just a few blocks away at the office of the U.S. Trade Representative. Some of the action items that have been on the table have been a currency pledge underway for a few months, agricultural purchases by China, more market openings by China, and limiting the requirement for Chinese investors to participate in these joint ventures, and also some potential waivers for U.S. suppliers to do business with Huawei. I call those action items because in the past, the president has taken issue with the marketing or the labeling of such an agreement as a mini deal, a skinny deal, or an interim deal. He wants to be seen as pushing for this broader, comprehensive deal. To that end, even earlier today, he was tweeting about one of the great things about the China deal is the fact that for various reasons, we don't have to go through the very long and politically complex congressional approval process. He says when the deal is fully negotiated, I sign it myself on behalf of our country, fast and clean. Now, Kelly, there's no expectation that that larger deal would be signed today, but the fact that China has already been announcing agricultural purchases, some of these market openings are seen by the U.S. side as goodwill measures, steps in the right direction, and according to Myron Brilliant over at the Chamber of Commerce, that should in turn lead the U.S. to call off that October 15th tariff hike.
Kayla, let's look at those action items one more time, which included the Huawei issues you mentioned, some ag purchases, a couple of other areas as well. Why? So what is the significance of saying, no, this is not a mini deal, this is not a skinny deal, these are just action items, so-called? What are they trying to accomplish with that language?
To prove that there is enough progress being made that a detente is warranted at this stage in the game. So that when Democrats, both on Capitol Hill and in the Democratic field running against President Trump in 2020, when they try to call him weak on China, he can say, no, not only did we secure these wins, but we also kept negotiations on the harder issues open. We still have tariffs on the majority of goods coming in from China, and we're still holding them to account.
Interesting.
That's the purpose of the marketing.
So
here.
we might not hear this administration refer to it as a deal in any sense like that. They simply almost want to say, hey, these are the concessions we've already won, and we're still working on the big one.
Correct, Kelly. But there is some hand-wringing among some staffers about the weakening economic data, or I should say some cracks in economic data, and also the political environment, the headline risk that's been coming in the last few weeks for the White House. In the words of one White House staffer, we need this good news.
All right, Kayla, appreciate it. We'll be checking back in with you shortly. Kayla Tausche is at the White House this afternoon. Let's talk more about how meaningful a deal or action items like these would be with our trade panel. Joining me now are Patrick Chovanec, who's Managing Director at Silvercrest Asset Management, Meredith Sumter is Head of Research, Strategy, and Operations at the Eurasia Group, and Riley Walters is Policy Analyst for Asia Economy and Technology at the Heritage Foundation. Welcome, everybody. Patrick, what do you think about calling these action items, and how well do you think these will all go over with the U.S. public, even if they are agreed to this afternoon?
So there's so much speculation going on about what might or might not be agreed to. I think we just have to wait and see what, number one, the announcement is, and then wait about 2 weeks to see whether that holds together or not, because we've had times in the past where it hasn't held together, and we've gone right back where we were with no agreement. For investors, I think there are two things to keep in mind. The first is that the Chinese economy is slowing, and it's slowing for reasons that predate the trade war, and will continue to slow with or without a trade deal. So that's an important thing. And the second is that the U.S. and China appear to be on a collision course on a host of other issues. So even if they solve even the kind of action items that you're talking about, I think there are still going to be events that rattle markets that have to do with continuing U.S.-China trade tensions, not just related to trade, but security and other things.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And Meredith and Riley, you guys differ a bit on whether these tariffs are likely to go into effect next week. Meredith, you think they're probably likely to be postponed. And how long? Does it matter? And then what about the December 15th round? It sounds like it would still be planned.
Yeah, really, the key here is that any truce that we're likely to see come out of this afternoon's talks, it's fragile. And it's not a breakthrough in substance at all. It's a sign that both sides are looking for a temporary truce. But the political incentives to make the harder concessions to get to a broader trade deal, we just don't see that coming anytime soon. So short-term gain, but over the long term, the relationship between the two largest economies will still remain rocky.
Meredith, which of the following action items is the biggest win for the U.S. if China agrees to it? If any of them you think are that significant, the Huawei waivers, the ag purchases, currency manipulation, Chinese market openings. I mean, which of these to you says, wow, look what we got accomplished here?
Not much actually says wow, because none of these action items are really structural in nature in getting to the 301 concerns that the Trump administration has raised with China. So look, we're likely to see a delay in the onward tariff negotiations. We might actually even see a slight rollback. I'm hearing from Chinese negotiators that they have dropped their asks for a full rollback of U.S. tariffs and would be happy to settle for just a slight rollback of tariffs. But fundamentally here, until those structural issues are addressed, most of those tariffs against Chinese products coming into the U.S. are likely to remain in place.
Okay, and Riley, you seem to think it's more likely than not that the tariffs will still go into effect, maybe even as soon as next week. Why is that?
I'm pretty pessimistic on these talks. Honestly, we've had 2 years of this now, and we have these occasional truces every now and then, but at the end of the day, I mean, we usually have tariffs coming back on eventually anyways, which is a problem in itself. we could have a truce. I'm not saying that it's not impossible. I'm just a little bit more pessimistic around either a truce or a small deal. So next week, I think we do see the tariffs coming about. It is pretty marginal compared to the tariffs we saw in September or the tariffs that we will see in December. But we also have some other interesting things too. Is next week China's going to release their new GDP numbers, and this could actually be another thing we're talking about in a week, another factor that contributes to whether they decide to continue the trade war or not.
Right, and we're always trying to figure out what the GDP really is and what it's reported as and so forth. Yeah. Patrick, Steve Bannon was on this morning, and when asked, look, what has the White House really won here, his take on it was the following. Take a quick listen.
China is hurting so much by these tariffs, and what they're trying to do is anything possible to get President Trump, I think, to delay or either nullify the October tariffs.
In other words, he says the tariffs, Patrick, got China to the negotiating table, and that itself is a win. Do you agree on that? I mean, what would happen if we didn't have them here to make a deal, so to speak?
I think that there would be a lot of other paths that the United States could have taken to get to a substantive conversation with China. I don't think this is the only one. I know that, they want to claim that because they want to show that this is putting a lot of pressure on China. The U.S. economy is also feeling some pressure here. What I heard from your other guests is that regardless of what happens today, there's going to be continuing uncertainty about tariffs, and a lot of tariffs are going to remain in place. And if you look at the surveys of businesses in both manufacturing and non-manufacturing, but particularly manufacturing, which is now in contraction in the United States, right, it's one of the things that has really weighed on businesses. Not so much consumer sentiment yet. That's been strong. But on business sentiment, and they're concerned not just about the impact of tariffs that are already in place, but the possibility of others.
Yeah, and so what I take from this whole discussion is that you guys are at best short-term optimistic, but everybody long-term seems to be quite downbeat on what's really been accomplished here, and maybe the fact that the U.S.-China relationship looks like it just could continue to get worse. With all that said, we'll see what comes about in an hour and a half or so. For now, thank you very much. Appreciate it, everybody. Patrick Jovanik, Meredith Sumter, and Riley Walters. Turning now to Purdue Pharma, the OxyContin maker is appearing in bankruptcy court today, pushing to freeze all litigation as it pursues a larger settlement. There are about 24 states who don't want this to happen. Meg Terrell has been following the story for us from the beginning, and she joins us from this hearing. Meg, what are you hearing?
Hey, Kelly. Well, I just came from an incredibly packed courtroom where there were dozens of lawyers all arguing different sides of this case, from Purdue Pharma's point of view to the Sackler family, which owns Purdue Pharma, to the various states and municipalities that have differing views here on what's going on. A Purdue lawyer stood up in court this morning and really called this a, quote, chaotic vortex of lawsuits. And so they are asking for those lawsuits against them, more than 2,000, to be stayed as they try to get more support for a proposed settlement offer that some of the folks who have sued them have signed on to and others are not agreeing with. Now, the settlement that they've put on the table, they say is worth at least $10 billion. It would essentially turn the company into a public trust through the bankruptcy process, using its assets then to try to help the opioid crisis, both cash and opioid overdose reversal drugs. The Sacklers themselves would contribute at least $3 billion. But as you said, at least 24 states and the District of Columbia have opposed this stay of litigation. And these are the arguments that are going on in the courthouse behind me right now. They want to be able to continue with their lawsuits against the company, many of which are coming up early next year, Kelly. We'll bring you any more we get, including potentially a judge's decision sometime this afternoon. Back to you.
Meg, so the judge here, could this effectively decide the issue as to whether this settlement becomes the one that applies for Purdue across the board in dealing with the opioid crisis, if they find that this is an appropriate way for them to deal with it?
What he will decide today, we expect, if he decides, is whether there will be a stay of the litigation so that the sides can work toward a settlement. It doesn't mean that the settlement will necessarily be accepted. It'll just give them more time when there aren't a lot of lawsuits swirling around them to try to come to the table. And we'll see if that actually ends up working. Half the states don't want this settlement. Right, exactly. Meg, thanks very much. Meg Terrell following that for us. And here's what else is ahead today on the exchange.
Coming up, markets rallying on hopes of a trade deal, but are investors getting ahead of themselves? Plus, signs of hope across the pond with a Brexit deal back in play. and 15 seconds of fame that could make a Chinese VC billions. That's all ahead on The Exchange. This is The Exchange on CNBC.
ServiceNow put our workflows in the cloud. This changes everything.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and be unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
The chance of being hurt while using a leaf blower is about 3,000 to 1. Ooh, unlucky. Never mind, at Curry's PC World, there's a 1 in 10 chance to get half your money back on all 2019 LG OLED TVs. Like the LG C9, described by Which as simply the best. Get blown away with Apple AirPlay, Google Assistant and Amazon Alexa built in. And there's up to £500 off. So the question is, are you feeling lucky? At Curry's PC World. T's and C's apply. GB16 plus. See currys.co.uk.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update.
MusicNews.com says Coldplay is planning to release their first new album in 4 years in November, with a tour expected in 2020. Meanwhile, Us Weekly claims Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton have purchased a home together. A source tells the magazine Gwen and Blake have bought a house together and it's currently being renovated, which is why they are living in a rental in Bel Air. To hear music from Coldplay and Gwen Stefani, search today's hits on TuneIn.
Welcome back to The Exchange. We're all over this market rally today. The Dow was up 500 points at the highs. We're hanging on to about a 360-point gain right now. That's 1.4%. Same for the S&P, the NASDAQ, too. And all of these markets are within reach of their all-time highs, less than 2% away for the Dow and S&P. It's not stirring up much excitement, though. In fact, quite the opposite. The latest AAII sentiment survey shows investor optimism dropping to a 3.5-year low. And nearly half of investors are bearish and expecting stock prices to decline over the next 6 months. For more, I'm joined by Steve Auth. He's Chief Investment Officer at Federated Investors, and Michelle McKinnon is Senior Wealth Advisor at Payne Capital Management. Good to have you both here. So, Steve, do you take this as a contrarian sign? I mean, it's pretty shocking that you could say, okay, we're at all-time highs, so people are getting cautious. But no, they've been cautious and bearish for a long time.
Yeah, we think the setup, Kelly, going into the fourth quarter is very good. There's this recency bias. Everyone remembers the last fourth quarter, which was terrible.
Right.
But fourth quarters are generally good. So we've had nothing but good news this week between the Fed going to steepening the curve and really QE light, effectively. ECB minutes looking very, very dovish. You had the fashionable numbers on the industrial side. We've been saying we think the manufacturing cycle is bottoming here.
Wow.
You know, the ISM index started turning down 11 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Manufacturing cycles have a way of working themselves out automatically as inventories readjust. And Germany's going to be lapping its negative numbers next month. So, you know, that's working. The trade news just get less worse. That seems where we are right now. That's all we need. So
less worse.
The setup looks very good, and I love the sentiment being negative. I think that's
and these are pretty. I mean, again, we have bearish sentiment is 44%, Michelle, of respondents versus the 30% historical average. Only 20% of people are bullish versus a 38% historical average. So people hate the stock market right now.
People have hated this bull market since its infancy, so I think that's actually extremely positive, and I agree with you that as long as we can keep sentiment pretty low, I think there's absolutely upside in the markets. It would be more alarming if people were extremely optimistic, especially with these headlines, right? I mean, there's certainly some negative headlines happening, and I think if investors were just turning away from that, I would actually be more concerned.
And we know how long it's been, a decade plus, and everybody's looking for those late cycle signs. The IPO frenzy that we had a little bit earlier in the year when Beyond Meat was in the headlines every day, well, not so much now that we've seen some of the high profile stumblers out of the block. There's not a ton of deal activity this year, for example. So how would you position people, Michelle, for this kind of environment?
Well, I think in terms of the IPO market, I actually think that's positive that the public markets are actually penalizing those that don't have revenue.
Absolutely.
And saying to the private markets, hey, you probably need to correct your valuation. So I would be more concerned if the public markets just continue to favor those that didn't have growth or didn't have profitable growth. In terms of positioning, I think it depends on your time horizon. I certainly wouldn't shy away from the bond market if you do have a short-term time horizon, because it's important to have that fixed income component. And I will say this, if we do get some type of trade resolution, I think the foreign markets are probably more ripe to move higher here because they have absolutely been hit by this trade war and they have lower valuations than we do.
Although, Steve, again, the U.S. Numbers and companies, and the Fastenal point is an excellent one, look really strong. I mean, certainly relative to what people were bracing for.
Yeah.
And if the cycle's turning, as you say.
Absolutely. And I would say, you want to stay overweight equities here. We kept our 3,100 target all year long on the S&P. I think we're probably going to blow through it before the end of the year. I think if the market moves higher, Kelly, from here to the end of the year, it's going to be through the cyclical side of the market. That's where the news marginally is getting less worse more quickly. And so, the industrials, the financials, the material stocks rallying today. But longer term, we like the whole broad sector of the equity market. And I agree with you, Michelle. There's value internationally. It just has less of the big tech names that you probably want to own on a longer term view. So I wouldn't give up on the U.S. market here quite yet. We haven't really loaded up on international. We're a little bit more than positive there, but I think, I agree with you that there's room there, but there's plenty to do in the U.S.
Yeah, but don't you think if, we do see significant slowdown here in the United States, and really slowdown is just coming to trend growth, that investors will eventually reward those that have much substantial growth than we do here in the United States?
Right. I mean, we're not calling for a slowdown here, though. So I think we've been through a soft patch that's lasted 9 months. I've got the economy reaccelerating in the U.S. next year, and growth here is going to continue to be better than in Europe. So, if you thought we're heading to a recession here, Michelle, I agree with you, get overseas more quickly, but we don't have that in our forecast.
All right. Contrarian. Bucking the trend today. Thank you both very much, guys. Appreciate it. Steve Auth and Michelle McKinnon. Coming up, after months of gridlock, could a peaceful Brexit be moving forward? The headlines that have markets rallying today and the players that can get that across the finish line coming up. Brexit is one of the reasons for the strong market rally. Trade being the other biggie, of course. And materials, industrials, and energy are your sector leaders in the S&P today. We'll have much more on all of that straight ahead on The Exchange.
Searching for a more memorable short break? Fly from London Heathrow to Cork from $55.99 each way as part of a return trip with Aer Lingus. Step off the plane and into a warm welcome in Cork. Surround yourself with breathtaking coastal views. Soak up the culture of Cork City or head to the colourful town of Kinsale and indulge in the best seafood around. Smart enjoys a short break in Ireland. Smart flies Aer Lingus. Book now at airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Carl's All Change Casserole.
So, Chloe walks in from school. Tears all over her face.
Daddy,
she says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat. But not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch. A dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco.
The Peugeot Professional Van range is the beating heart of businesses across the UK. Whether you're on the road with only your DAB radio for company or navigating tight spots with rear parking sensors, all Peugeot Professional Vans give your business that edge. Visit your local Peugeot dealership during our October van event from the 10th to the 31st of October and drive away with an exclusive finance offer. Master the impossible. Peugeot Motor Company PLC is acting as a credit broker, not a lender. Finance subject to status. Terms and conditions apply. Business users and over 18s only. Guarantee may be required. PSA Finance UK Limited.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond, define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Welcome back to the exchange. Markets are surging today on hopes for a China trade deal, but it's not just China pushing us higher. For more, let's go to Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange. Hi, Bob.
Hello, Kelly. Remember, there are two other factors in today's rally besides trade talk, and I think they're contributing to the rally. First is a potential Brexit breakthrough, which is rallying Europe, by the way, almost 2%. Second, word that Hong Kong protesters are discussing dialing down the protests over there, which resulted in a better than 2% rally in Hong Kong. But assuming we do get a modest deal today, a trade truce, just no more tariffs, that's a modest deal, how much more is really left to the rally? So the S&P has moved 40 points in the last 24 hours, and it's now just 1.5% from its old highs. It's likely that an announcement of just that modest deal, no more tariffs, may not advance the markets much more unless a much more comprehensive deal is announced. So does a truce get markets through Christmas? I asked that from Art Cashin the other day, and that's the big question. He's not sure either. The problem for markets is that it does not change the lower growth narrative for 2020, number one, and it does not end the trade wars. Remember, a truce does not end the trade wars. The battle will continue into 2020 over capital flows and export controls and industrial policy. Kelly, let me just qualify what I was saying about not necessarily rallying. If all of a sudden an announcement is made and the tariffs are completely eliminated, we'll have a much bigger rally today. But a more modest one where just no more tariffs, I'm not sure how much more juice is left in that rally.
That's a good point. Bob, thanks. We'll see what we get. Bob Pisani at the NYSE. Let's get over to Sue Herrera now for our CNBC News update. Sue?
Thank you, Kelly. Here's what's happening at this hour, everyone. The former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine telling lawmakers that President Trump pressured the State Department to remove her as part of a concerted campaign against her. That's according to multiple reports. Marie Yovanovitch was relieved of her post in May. An update now on the California Saddle Ridge wildfire, which is raging in Los Angeles County. Fire officials now say 4,600 acres have been burned, 25,000 homes have been evacuated, and 100,000 people have been displaced. The fire has grown to more than 7 square miles. United is the latest airline to scrap plans to bring back the 737 MAX before the end of the year. The carrier says it will keep the jets off the schedule through January 6th. It will cancel nearly 8,300 flights from now until January. And a recall to tell you about. Bluebell Ice Cream is recalling a batch of ice cream that may contain pieces of plastic. About 1,700 half gallons of Butter Crunch ice cream produced at a plant in Alabama in late August may be contaminated. It was sold in the Southeast, so check those refrigerators. That is the news update this hour. Kelly, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Sue, thanks very much. Sue Herrera still ahead. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin is now set to hold a press conference at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time. That's just about 15 minutes away. We are being told it's not about China, but he will be taking questions, and we'll take you there live as soon as that gets underway. We're back in 2.
London London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and be unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Chase the sun with TUI to over 40 long-haul destinations. Explore the beautiful beaches of Jamaica, sip margaritas in Mexico, or see the many wonders of Asia. And until the 26th of October, enjoy £150 off per booking. When you fly with us, we'll take you there on one of our state-of-the-art Dreamliner planes. TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. T's and C's apply. Minimum spend £1,200 and available on selected holidays. See website for details. Atoll protected.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family wants sports, these games are unmissable. Get in. Comedy, coming up. Way better than the dad jokes in this house. Or how about crime dramas? I've got loads, and they're never going to guess who did it. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto-renew, terms apply.
Watford, it's chilly outside, and you're staying in with your feet up, and they can stay up. Because with Hive Active Heating, you can set the perfect temperature without even lifting a finger.
Alexa, ask Hive to boost my heating.
And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill.
Alexa, play my Nice and Toasty playlist.
Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Will cancer affect my sex life?
Your sex drive can disappear. The side effects may stop you.
Your sex life can easily stay.
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
Now, even better. Watch Business News live with a daily free preview. Plus, access market updates, exclusive features, and your favorite primetime shows. Discover the new CNBC app on Apple TV.
Welcome back. Stocks just jumped higher on reports a partial trade deal has been reached between China and the U.S. In Washington. But we jumped about 100 points. Now we're only up about 30 relative to the last time we checked here. Dow's up 388 right now. Of course, as soon as we get more confirmation or further word, we'll bring that to you. We're also expecting to hear from the Treasury Secretary on an unrelated issue in about 15 minutes' time. In the meantime, let's catch you up on a couple stories that should also be on your radar. It is time for Rapid Fire. And here to take on the headlines are Bill Griffith, Elon Moy in the house, welcome, and Robert Frank. It's great to have everyone here. Roku, of course, is not rapid fire lately if we're not talking about Roku. It's higher again today. This has been a huge week for them. They got an outperform to RBC this morning, which says a more compelling valuation is one reason. It's hard to believe after this run-up. Strong fundamentals, favorable positioning make it one of their strongest plays in streaming video. They also boosted the price target by $48, which is another 30% rally. Here are the Roku shares, which are up 14% this week and have now nearly quadrupled on the year. So this is a huge momentum name. We got confirmation of that with the 13D from Ken Griffin this week that Citadel owns a big piece in it as well.
You know, with the streaming services coming online, this is going to be a boondoggle, I think, for a lot of these the devices that are out there. And Roku has been the leader in all of this. And I was just talking to our Todd Hazelton, who does reviews of these devices, and he was telling me that Disney Plus hasn't signed up yet with Fire TV. So if you're going to start to have a little turf wars with some of these streaming services that could become very popular, but they're not available on all the devices, right. I mean, then you may have a real situation there. And it could be a great thing for Roku here, right?
You wonder, though, I mean, I have a smart TV, right? So I have, you have all the streaming services on your smart TV. So I don't really understand what Roku does, but I'm told that for people that want to aggregate it, and it is a smoother sort of cross-channel device.
Some of the smart TVs actually use Roku technology in order to kind of present us that experience. Right. But for the most part, yes, they're trying to.
But what my big question with Roku, at what point will they start becoming a content provider? At what point will they sort of realize, look, right now they're very dependent on Amazon, on YouTube, Google, and on Netflix. Right. At what point do they say, look, if these guys pull out, we're toast. shows. So therefore, we have to start producing program, which, as we know, is extremely expensive.
Right. They have, I think, a movie channel type thing. They're especially working on the advertising stuff. We talked about how they have these new pop-up ads now.
Primarily they seem to be an advertising business now. And so I think the question is, how much will consumers accept all those ads popping up during their streaming services?
That
or are you going to shell out
Yes.
the money without paying for it? Or are you going to pay for it in dollars versus in eyeballs, right? And sign up for something like Apple TV, which is what I have, so that you don't have to watch all of those ads. You cannot escape the ads
My
on
new
Roku.
thing is the DVR has never looked better, and I stand by that.
Yeah.
Next, Facebook and Google are causing more headaches for the ad industry. Shares of French advertising giant Publicis plummeting today after lowering guidance for the second time this year. They're now expecting organic revenue to drop, and they are all struggling to deal with the growing dominance of the tech giants. And they face new competition from people who are trying to position all of these clients more nimbly for the online world. Consulting firms are now a big consulting firms for these ad giants. This is not Mad Men anymore. We are far away from that.
Oh, we are way, way past Mad Men days. I mean, and social media plays a huge part of all of this. We're going to talk about productivity in a little bit here and what the Fed's looking at, all the free stuff that's out there. And on social media, that's a very effective way to advertise these days in the non-traditional sense.
And they need big data and all of these different ways of best using those platforms that don't necessarily play to the historical, traditional storytelling type TV-focused strengths of these ad giants.
Yeah, and I think that the advertising business and the way that the internet platforms have dominated them, I mean, that is low-hanging fruit for regulators. That is why the state AGs are going after Google primarily on advertising. Maybe some other issues will come into that. But the ad business is where they are focusing their attention to begin with because it seems to be the biggest and most obvious problem.
Yeah, Facebook, Google together, 2/3 of the ad market. It's amazing that we have any agencies left. I mean, with them fighting over the 1/3 in addition to all the other digital companies out there, there's just not that much left.
Yeah, no, it's pretty shocking how quickly it's happened, too. You wonder if they're kind of the ones pushing some of this, like, crack down on these guys.
Right. There's probably a whole generation out there that has no idea what a TV commercial is. Right?
You know the first millennials are going to be 40 next year? Anyway, I'm trying to make it. Okay, what's the internet worth to you? This is what Bill mentioned a second ago. The answer to this question is exactly what the Federal Reserve wants to know because it's struggling to explain weak productivity and GDP growth. Elon, some of these nuggets are hysterical. I mean, but people would really need to be paid a lot of money to stop using their favorite services.
That's right. So basically what the story is all about is how do you value the digital economy? And the problem with all of our official statistics is that they're based on price. Well, if these services are free, how do you account for them in our standard tools of measurement? So what some researchers at MIT did, and this is what the Fed has been looking at, is survey a bunch of consumers, a bunch of viewers and users and say, how much would it take for you to give up this service? And they found that for something like Facebook, it would take $48 for people to give it up for a month.
For a month?
For a month, $48. But if you want to get something like search, it's going to cost you $17,000.
Yeah,
that's
that was
the value that
for
you
the year.
place on it. That one's for a year. Yeah, that one's for a year. But
Bill and I would both pay more than that.
Well,
we need to be paid because we use. I mean, it's crazy how reliant we are on this.
Absolutely.
But the way you phrase that is important. So there's a difference here because I think a lot of us would say if asked how much would we pay for this, the number is not very high. But how much would we have to be paid to stop using it? So that speaks to the business model.
And Jerome Powell referred to this the other day, and they're trying to figure out how to quantify this in their measurement of GDP growth out there. And I was thinking about this for my own life. You'd have to pay me a lot to give up playing golf, but you wouldn't have to pay me a whole lot to give up watching Giants football games, for example.
What does that tell you?
And these valuations...
Is that just because of this season, or...?
These valuations, we've looked at it in terms of the productivity, but what about in terms of the consumption?
What is the benefit that consumers find in some of these services? I thought it was interesting that when they surveyed users on Twitter, the amount that they would need to give it up was zero.
To give up Twitter itself.
To give up Twitter.
Wow.
And then Europeans, though, weren't they?
Yeah, they were the Europeans, so it's a whole different business model over there.
Who, by the way, love their WhatsApp, and that was another nugget here as well. I mean, the bottom line, too, is growth better, is productivity better than we think because this value is not being captured?
I think it's being undermeasured.
That's the argument. Yep, right? Absolutely. It's raging out there. Finally, and what a week it's been for the NBA in China. I mean, wow. NBA says it's canceling all media availability for the rest of the league's time.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry. We're on live television here.
The league's time in China will come to a close following tomorrow's game between the Brooklyn Nets and the LA Lakers in Shenzhen. So, Mr. Chemi, we've brought Eric on here to help break down the events of the week. The other kind of interesting thing that's happened the last day or two is China realizing that it can't risk alienating the NBA altogether. Because you do, I mean, if you have 500 million fans, you presumably don't want to upset too much.
But they removed all the sponsors from the court. So that game that was played yesterday, it was just a blank and empty court. That game was played in China. It was not aired in China. Right. So the only people that could watch it were us here.
And the people in the stadium,
15,000 in the stadium,
arena, right?
Very muted crowd, and they were handing out Chinese flags on your way into the stadium. So look, if China wanted to, they could just say to their country through their state-run media, the NBA has offended us. The NBA has gone against Chinese values. We're banning the NBA from here. And maybe they could convince people, yeah, we're going to side with the government because the NBA is bad. But they probably know you can't convince 500 million people of that.
I mean, that was my question is, yes, we've only heard from the Chinese government on all of this and how upset they are by it. But we haven't heard from the Chinese fans at all on this, right?
There was an interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal today that did interview a lot of fans, particularly of the Houston Rockets. And the Rockets are a very special Chinese firm.
They had Yao Ming
there, yeah. And that's where it all started. And a lot of diehard lifetime fans of the Rockets are saying, you know what, we're out.
Chinese fans
social credit score is probably going to hurt you over there if you start watching Rockets games.
And it's because we underestimate the amount of nationalism in China right now for all sorts of reasons. And the timing of it, the actual specifics of the comment and the way it was handled, it did turn a lot of fans off.
And it was interesting to me when you said, what is the value of Tencent's contract with the NBA?
So Tencent
they could hurt the players themselves.
$100 million a year for streaming rights in China. In the same way that ESPN or Turner pays the league for rights, Tencent has their deal, $200 million a year. If that goes away, the league and the players split at 50-50. So now $100 million is gone from the teams. That's $3 million a year in salary cap. If you're a max player like Klay Thompson or whoever, LeBron, that's $5 million over the course of a 5-year deal. That's why the players are quiet too.
Right. The players have been very quiet on this, and guys like Klay Thompson have shoe deals with Chinese companies.
His deal is with Anta. It's maybe an $80 million deal over 10 years. Wow. Makes annual trips. I mean, it's not like he's selling Nikes in China. He's selling Chinese shoes.
Exactly, and that's why we haven't heard much from the players. Real quickly, because we are, following the news flow to see if we get this trade deal, so to speak. You have to, I mean, does the NBA breathe a sigh of relief in that case, or does it now seem like this is a completely separate issue where Adam Silver has to figure out how to patch this over?
Because the trade deal is about tariffs. This is about watching games. There's no tariff on watching a game.
Right.
So this is totally unrelated. And you saw the way that President Trump, he didn't really get involved in saying this is the outcome that I want. It's just they got to figure it out.
Right.
This is not a tariff-based issue for me.
Right. Even he didn't really take sides in it as well. But, again, maybe China's realizing they don't want to push it too hard.
But they've warned the NBA, you pull this again.
Have they?
I mean, think about it. Just we've gotten the point.
Yeah, the point has been made.
Gotten the point already.
I think that's been made loud and clear. All right, guys, thank you all. Appreciate it today. Eric Chemi, Bill Griffith, Elon Moy, and Robert Frank. And still ahead, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin is set to hold a press briefing in a couple of minutes' time. We're told it's not about China, but he will be taking questions, and we'll take you there for that live. Plus, a positive meeting between the prime ministers of Ireland and the UK may signal hope for a deal on Brexit. We'll tell you where things stand ahead on The Exchange.
Hi, my name is Sam Davis, and I'm going to tell you about
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Carl's All Change Casserole.
So, Chloe walks in from school. Tears all over her face.
Daddy,
she says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat, but not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch, a dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range, Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, and TuneIn Premium puts you at field level for every...
And it's a home run!
Single...
And goal!
game.
And that gone, a home run.
With TuneIn Premium, catch every pitch of every inning of every Major League postseason game until the final out of the World Series.
0-2 pitch, little half swing, and it hit.
At home or on the road, Major League Baseball's postseason action is on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball is gone.
Upgrade today.
Make sure to follow TuneIn today, so you're always in the know. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just search @TuneIn.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Welcome back to the Exchange. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin is set to hold a briefing in just a minute or two here. We're being told it's not about China, but that he will be taking questions. We'll follow that event live for you as it plays out, of course. Markets are hanging on to about a 427-point gain right now as they continue to fluctuate on reports about a China trade deal. And that big meeting happens at 2:45 p.m. between the president and the vice premier of China. It's not just China trade, though, in the market today. We've got positive signals from the UK, from Ireland, even from the EU, that a Brexit deal might be possible. Wilfred Frost is here with more. Wilf, are we talking about a deal by the end of the month, them leaving?
Well, possibly. The market moves suggest there's hope of that, and sterling has surged nearly 4% in just 48 hours as hopes of that Brexit deal have dramatically improved. The UK and European risk assets have loved that news, especially the domestic-focused FTSE 250 and the Irish stock market, as a deal would, of course, avoid the worst-case scenario of a no-deal Brexit and the uncertainty that an election would bring. Having seen hopes for the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's deal lowered on Monday after reports of a sour phone call with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, we saw a dramatic turnaround in sentiment yesterday following an upbeat bilateral meeting between Johnson and the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar, which was further cemented today at the EU level following a meeting between Brexit Secretary Stephen Barclay and the EU negotiator Michel Barnier. So what next? The EU and the UK need to finalise a deal ahead of next week's EU summit. Boris Johnson needs his Northern Irish partners, the DUP, and the anti-Europe conservative group, the ERG, to back him until then, and then crucially in a parliamentary vote on the deal. He could probably survive losing a handful of those voters by gaining Labour Leave rebels, but not the entire groups. The move in sterling to a 3-month high shows the market is hopeful, and there have not yet been any comments to destroy that hope, though we're still a long way from confirming the deal altogether, Kelly.
Yep, first big positive breakthrough we've seen in a while. Will, thanks very much. Appreciate it, sir. And as mentioned, that's one of the things boosting global markets today. As we await to hear from the Treasury Secretary, looks like he's coming in right now to hold a press briefing. Again, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. Let's listen in.
The Treasury Department, in consultation with himself and Secretary Pompeo, very significant new sanctions authorities that can be targeted at any person associated with the government of Turkey, any portion of the government. This will be both primary sanctions and secondary sanctions that will be applicable. The president is concerned about the ongoing military offensive and potential targeting of civilians, civilian infrastructure, ethnic or religious minorities. And also, the president wants to make very clear it is imperative that Turkey not allow even a single ISIS fighter to escape. Again, I want to emphasize at this point, we are not activating the sanctions, but as the president has said, he will provide very significant authorities based upon the continuing efforts. So he will be signing this. They will be active. We will be working in consultation with the Department of Defense and Department of State to monitoring this very quickly. We are putting financial institutions on notice that they should be careful and that there could be sanctions. Again, there are no sanctions at this time, but this will be the broadest executive authorities delegated to us.
When you spoke with the president, was there any concern about the actions he took that led to this? And can you tell us when would you put these sanctions in? What would it take for you to actually activate?
Okay, well, on No, I don't think he thinks his actions are what led to this. It is a complicated situation. It's a situation that we're all concerned about, and the humanitarian situation. And there are very clear discussions that will be going on between the Department of Defense and the State Department. I just got off the phone with the finance minister, and we will be communicating specifics that we're not going to telegraph here.
Mr. Secretary, can you give us an update on the China trade negotiations?
I didn't think anybody would be asking me about that.
China trade negotiations that are going on today. Is it possible that we get to the end of the day today with no new specific deals agreed to, or are we definitely going to see something?
So I wanted to make sure everybody knew in advance I wasn't talking about China, because I didn't want to think I was calling a specific China meeting. We have had productive 2 days of discussions, Ambassador Lighthizer and myself, with the Vice Premier and others. We will be meeting with the President shortly. We will be updating the President on those. He'll then be meeting with the Vice Premier. I wouldn't be surprised if, like usual, he decides to invite a few of you in, but I'm not going to make any other comments in advance of us meeting with the President.
The stock market is very optimistic about what it sees over at the USTR's office. Are they right to be optimistic?
The stock market's always right.
No, but is there reason for optimism?
Again, I'm not going to make any more comments. I've said we've had productive 2 days of discussions. We'll be making more announcements after we meet with the President. Yes.
So far, Turkey has not been dissuaded by anything this administration has done or the President has said. What makes you confident that the announcement that you just made is going to change Turkey's?
Well, I don't agree with your premise. I'm not going to comment on specific confidential discussions that have been going on different levels. So I don't think that's a good premise. But again, these are very powerful sanctions. We hope we don't have to use them, but we can shut down the Turkish economy if we need to.
How does the threat of these sanctions help these U.S. allies who say they have been abandoned?
Again, it's a complicated military situation that is ongoing. There are discussions. I think the President has had very specific discussions. As I said, the Department of Defense, we have expectations. This is a way of making sure that we protect the humanitarian issues and the other people on the ground.
As far as you know, have any plans specifically changed about Turkish President Erdogan still visiting the White House? Are things still in good faith?
I'm not aware of anything that's changed, but again, I'm not confirming that. I just haven't heard anything one way or another.
Secretary, what kind of consultations are you having with lawmakers like Lindsey Graham, Senator Van Hollen, who have been really very critical of the pullout of U.S. troops from Syria?
Secretary Pompeo has been speaking to them daily. I've been speaking to the Secretary multiple times a day. I think the message to Congress is, I know that people were contemplating sanctions. We're on top of sanctions. The President will use them when necessary. Thank you, everybody.
That's Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin leaving after a press briefing in which he announced new sanctions authority on Turkey. Let's bring in Kayla Tausche for more reaction, Kayla, to this announcement that does not appear to actually activate the sanctions themselves.
He says they're authorizing but not activating the sanctions. He says that the financial institutions in Turkey should be put on notice by this announcement and that the U.S. administration can shut down Turkey's economy at any time. There was a little moment of levity in that briefing, though, when our Eamon Javers asked him about China trade talks, and he said, I thought I was clear that I wasn't going to be talking about that. He didn't go so far as to confirm the reporting that's out there that there is a partial deal that's been reached by the U.S. and China. But he did say that the stock market is always right, and is right in this case, to be optimistic about what might be coming later today. And he said that he and Ambassador Lighthizer will be meeting with the president momentarily. They will be updating him on exactly what transpired across the street during 2 days of negotiations. And the Treasury Secretary said you will likely see some announcements later.
Yeah, Kayla, I thought that was a cheeky line when he said the stock market's always right. I'm not sure, he'll want to stand by that all the time. But on the issue of Turkey, the fact that they would authorize but not activate the sanctions, does that really have any meaning?
Well, it's certainly supposed to serve as a warning to Turkey. He dodged the question about what concern he has, if any, about some of the actions that led to Turkey's going into Syria that came on the back of a phone call between Turkey's president and President Trump, after which President Trump removed U.S. forces from Syria. The Treasury Secretary didn't go there, and certainly there would seem to be some, at least tacit acknowledgement that the U.S. may have played a small role in this, but certainly wasn't willing to comment to that extent. Kelly.
Yeah, a sort of small move, a gesture, I guess, if you will, the beginning of what could be more to come. Kayla, thanks. We'll see you again shortly. Kayla Tausche there, and that was the latest out of the Treasury imposing the authority for sanctions that U.S. officials will now be granted on Turkey. A quick check of the markets. Dow's up 418 at session highs. We were up 499. Still waiting on confirmation about what has, if anything, been agreed to between the U.S. and China. The president and the vice premier meet in just about an hour's time. More exchange right after this.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
The world's longest wedding dress was longer than the Grand National Racecourse. Think that's big? Tonight, the Euro Millions jackpot is a colossal £15 million. 15 million! Now that's big.
Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
The Peugeot professional van range is the beating heart of businesses across the UK. Whether you're on the road with only your DAB radio for company or navigating tight spots with rear parking sensors, all Peugeot professional vans give your business that edge. Visit your local Peugeot dealership during our October van event from the 10th to the 31st of October and drive away with an exclusive finance offer. Master the impossible. Peugeot Motor Company PLC is acting as a credit broker, not a lender. Finance subject to status. Terms and conditions apply. Business users and over 18s only. Guarantee may be required. PSA Finance UK Limited.
Chase the sun with TUI to over 40 long-haul destinations. Explore the beautiful beaches of Jamaica. Sip margaritas in Mexico. Or see the many wonders of Asia. And until the 26th of October, enjoy £150 off per booking. When you fly with us, we'll take you there on one of our state-of-the-art Dreamliner planes. TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's, and put you in the middle. T's and C's apply. Minimum spend £1,200 and available on selected holidays. See website for details. Atoll protected.
It's Liz Hernandez with your TuneIn Music News Update. Billboard magazine says Miley Cyrus has been hospitalized because of tonsillitis. She has a show this weekend and is trying to heal so she can perform in Los Angeles on Saturday. Meanwhile, good news for Bieber fans. MusicNews.com says Justin Bieber will release a new album before the end of the year.
Are you wondering why I've been calling?
To hear music from Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber, search today's hits on TuneIn.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content. Learn about hot new podcasts and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Welcome back. Let's get you a check on these markets with a lot of headlines moving us today. The Dow's up 434 points right now. That's 1.6%. We're about 60 points off the session highs where we started earlier in the day on hopes of a mini or skinny U.S.-China trade deal. Of course, as Kayla has reported, the White House sees these more as action items as opposed to any official deal that may be coming today. Reports just in the last 20 minutes or so that some kind of breakthrough has been reached are what are pushing us back up towards session highs. There's the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ, by the way, about 3% off its all-time highs right now. The Dow and the S&P 500 just under 2% off of their all-time highs as well. Elon Moy is here with more. Elon, we just heard from the Treasury Secretary. He was talking about sanctions authority on Turkey. He was asked by our Eamon Javers, actually, about China, and he said it's been a productive 2 days of discussions, but I'm going to go brief the president. I'm not going to say anything yet. But when asked about the stock market rally in anticipation of a deal today, he said, quote, "The stock market's always right."
Yeah, I feel that very productive is some of the secretary's favorite words to use to sort of not tip his hand in which way the talks are going. So I wouldn't read too much into that particular statement. But what I do think is notable here is how the terms of success have been redefined, right? You talked earlier about the idea of a skinny deal. I mean, what the market has come to accept and what the market sort of expects to be a win is now much smaller than we had thought about a year ago, right? So the idea that you're removing tariffs that are set to take place in a week that we had not even expected in the first place, I mean, the president has been very deft in creating multiple levers for him to use in order to say that he has secured a deal when underlying tensions between the U.S. and China may not have abated.
Or have gotten significantly worse. So on the action items Kayla mentioned, we're talking about China doing agricultural purchases, some language maybe around currency manipulation, maybe some market openings. These are the things on the table. The U.S. grants Huawei waivers. The real focus seems to be, are the tariffs coming next week or not? And is there any chance the December 15th round will be pushed off? Because even though these didn't exist until recently, that seems to be the top concern right now.
And those action items that Kayla's been reporting on, I mean, those are the action items that have been on the table for quite some time. And so I think that they seem to be in the same place, and they keep getting closer and closer to making those agricultural purchases or granting those licenses to suppliers of Huawei. If they are actually able to accomplish something and say, these are things we've ticked off the checklist, that's progress, that's moving forward. But again, the tough issues still have not been addressed. And I wonder if those action items are going to be enough for the president's base to say, hey, he's actually taken on China and made some real progress.
Right. So also the agricultural purchases that had pushed us higher earlier in the week, a lot of this has been priced in. The currency manipulation language may not be that strong. The Chinese market openings issue is a much bigger piece of this, and I wonder if we really get substantial progress there.
Yeah, I know the ag industry has been pushing for that pretty hard, the beef industry, the pork industry, et cetera. So that may be one area that helps, particularly that support in the farmland and the heartland, get stronger as we enter the election cycle.
Absolutely, and the Chinese know that's a big pawn here as well, for better or worse. Elon, appreciate it very much.
Sure thing.
Elon Moy here on The Exchange. That does it for us. Power Lunch is going to pick things up right now.
And we'll see you in just a moment, Kelly. I'm Melissa Lee Newitt. To a major market rally. Trade optimism sending stocks surging. Reports saying the U.S. and China have reached a partial deal here. The Treasury Secretary just saying the stock market is always right when he was asked about the market's reaction to those talks today. You see here triple digits for the Dow as well as the NASDAQ. Look at the big name stocks hitting some record highs today. We've got a lot of them. Apple, Walmart, Home Depot, just to name a few. And the industrial names leading the Dow higher. Caterpillar, 3M, United Technologies. We are live in Washington, Wall Street, and beyond. Power Lunch starts right now.
Good afternoon and welcome. Trade Talks, the story dominating the markets today, as Melissa mentioned. A key meeting set to take place at the White House in this hour. Can President Trump actually seal a deal, even if it's just a skinny bundle? Kayla Tausche is in D.C. with the latest on the talks. Bob Bazzani at the NYSE with the Friday frenzy in the markets. Kayla, you first.
Tyler, before that 2:45 p.m. meeting between President Trump and the Vice Premier of China, the Treasury Secretary and the Trade Representative are going to be briefing the president to tell him exactly what transpired during 2 days of what the Treasury Secretary says were productive negotiations just a couple of blocks away with China. We expect that there will be some announcements. Secretary Mnuchin confirmed that there would be, but there still needs to be a decision on exactly what those are. A source close to talks tells me that President Xi Jinping of China also needs to accept what's been decided as well. So we await all of those developments. Secretary Mnuchin just briefing moments ago, and he was asked about the optimism regarding China trade talks in the market right now, especially on the back of headlines that there could be a partial deal coming. Here's how the Treasury Secretary responded.
The stock market is very optimistic about what it sees over at the USTR's office. Are they right to be optimistic?
The stock market's always right.
Treasury Secretary has said the stock market is a barometer of how the administration is going before. So this is certainly in line with his views here, but notable that on a day when there are reports saying that a partial deal has been reached, and he's saying the stock market is right here, that is certainly something that's significant.
What does partial mean? Enumerate some of the things that they may have agreed to.
Well, it means that it's not the whole kit and caboodle, Tyler. It is not a comprehensive deal, as Peter Navarro earlier this week was saying would need to be reached, that hit all the items that the president has wanted to get since he opened up this trade dispute a couple of years ago. Essentially, it would mean that China is not going to change its laws to essentially get some of these intellectual property rights that the U.S. is seeking, but it may do it in other ways. China's already started to open up some more of its markets, some of its industries and financial services. Notably, it announced this morning. So these are seen as trickles in the right direction, moves of goodwill to try to support this idea that China could do some of these things, but not all of them quite yet. Tyler.
All right, Kayla, thank you very much. Kayla Tausche following it for us from the North Lawn.
Markets are sitting close to session highs with all of this happening. This word of a potential deal and what exactly it might look like. Let's get over to Bob Pisani, who's got more on today's action for us. Bob?
And the important thing is, the question is, what does a partial deal mean? Right now, the base case for the markets is a very partial deal, simply no more tariffs. That's what the market is expecting, perhaps in exchange for buying some agricultural products. If there is something more substantial, and on this alone, we've rallied 50 points in the S&P in the last 24 hours. If something more substantial happens, some additions to that, or if something really big happens, like they eliminate all tariffs, we can get a much more serious rally going into the close. But that's not the base case for the markets right now. I think the bigger question is, does this modest truce, for example, really change things? For example, would it get us to new highs? We're only 1.5% away from that on the S&P 500. More importantly, would it get us to Christmas without some deterioration in the markets like we had in December of last year on the global growth concerns? I think the worry for the markets right now is, number one, this doesn't change the fundamental narrative about slower growth in 2020, 1 to 2% GDP growth in the U.S., and it doesn't change the fact that the trade war still exists if there is this partial deal. It doesn't change the fact that there's still going to be multiple attacks on China going forward in 2020 on several different fronts on the trade war. And I think that's what may weigh on the markets beyond today and beyond the next week or so. Back to you.
The issue, Bob, is that a partial deal is kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Bob, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. No, I'll keep talking if we keep going into that. Go ahead.
All right, then I'll take it back. Bob, thanks. Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange. For more on how a deal could change trade and our complicated relationship with China, let's bring in Stephanie Miller, the co-founder of Sandhill Strategy, and Ishwar Prasad, senior fellow with Brookings, who's also professor of international trade and economics at Cornell University. Guys, great to have you with us. Stephanie, I'm going to get your take on what this partial deal could mean. Does that really change much aside from possibly delaying some tariffs?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things. One is tactically what this partial deal is, and then also what it represents. And, you know, less than 24 hours ago, I was fielding calls from institutional investors, you know, asking me, what the heck is going on? Why is China leaving early? If you remember, late Wednesday night, there were rumors that the delegation might be leaving before today. And so what the market really wants to see, what investors want to see, what I want to see, is a de-escalation. And I think that's what we're getting today. So, you know, regardless of exactly how this de-escalation comes together, I think it's meaningful.
It's funny, Ishwar, because this de-escalation could happen in the form of the partial deal, but there are all sorts of issues surrounding the trade war and the surrounding trade negotiations that have been an escalation going into the trade war. So, I mean, ultimately, do we really see a de-escalation in terms of the tension between the two countries?
I would characterize it as a lack of escalation rather than a de-escalation. So it's not that any of the existing trade measures that the U.S. has imposed on China or the other way around are coming off. It's just that new measures are not going to be put in place if, in fact, there is a deal, which we'll have to wait and see. But what the markets seem to be taking is that the lack of bad news is in some sense good news. But the deal, or what we are hearing about the elements of the deal, certainly don't point to any substantive de-escalation, and they don't deal with any of the key issues that have been generating economic and trade frictions between the two countries. So there is a long way to go if one really wants to talk about there being a good basis for markets to rally because China and the U.S. are pulling it together into some sort of deal.
So, Ishwar, what is China giving and what is the U.S. giving?
What it sounds like China is giving is agreeing to buy more goods, especially agricultural products from the U.S., perhaps agreeing to keep the value of its currency stable, so not using currency depreciation as a tool to fend off the effects of the tariffs on its own exports, and perhaps some market opening measures. What the U.S. might give, according to the reporting we've seen, is perhaps easing back the restrictions on sales of equipment and technology to Huawei, and perhaps a few measures related to allowing Chinese firms to operate here, continue being listed on stock exchanges, and so on. So it's really a very de minimis deal on both sides.
So, Stephanie, how does that set up for the next round of talks, which could be much thornier?
Yeah, I mean, they always talk about how they left, they got 95% of the way there, and the last 5% is what really created obstacles back in May. And of course, the last 5% is always going to be the hardest. I think what we need to see, though, is room for the leaders of these two countries, whether Trump and Xi or their senior negotiators like we saw this week, to be able to come to the table and make progress. So I agree that basically a lack of an escalation maybe is a better term. But I do think that we could see a complete de-escalation and a complete deal come together before the end of the year. I think, to bring in more politics, I think impeachment absolutely pressures the president to need a win. I think economic pressure pressures the president to need a win. I think there's a lot weighing on Trump here right now.
And a complete de-escalation, Stephanie, in your view, would mean rolling back all tariffs, for instance?
Yeah, I think we could see something like that by the end of the year, absolutely.
Wow. Quite a prediction. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Stephanie Miller and Ishwar Prasad.
So as stocks continue to surge today on hopes of a trade truce, the question is, will the rally continue? Ron Insana is here. He's a CNBC senior analyst and senior advisor to Schroders North America. Ron, we appreciate it. Will Rind is also with us. We're glad to have you with us, too. So, Ron, the market feels very binary to me. Trade deal, good. No trade deal, bad. Brexit deal, good. No Brexit deal, bad. Yeah. If earnings are okay, good. If have I got it mostly right?
I think generally speaking, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, we're looking for a 4.5% decline in S&P 500 earnings in the third quarter or thereabouts. If they come in slightly better than expected, as was the case in the first and second quarters, as you say, that's good. With respect to the trade deal, it's interesting that there's so much optimism that if the Chinese were just to begin purchasing agricultural goods, which they have not bought since last November, in bulk, it just puts us where we were before the trade war started. So, yeah, de-escalation is good insofar as it doesn't get worse from here and the tariffs don't go to 25% on $600 billion worth of Chinese goods.
Ishwar was interesting there where he said basically a lack of escalation equals de-escalation.
More precise.
Right?
Yeah.
A lack of escalation. So, Will, after we stop worrying about China trade for a week or so, what's the next worry for the market?
I think the worry for the market is the slowdown. I think, as people have said, trade tariffs aside, it doesn't change the fact that the global economy, is slowing, and people are worried about what the implications would be for the U.S. economy, particularly when you're coming into third quarter earnings season.
So, if you get some sort of breakthrough on trade, does that mitigate in any way? I know we've looked today at copper and some of the industrials and so forth. Does that mitigate the economic slowdown globally?
I don't know whether it mitigates it, but it certainly would help.